There are quite a lot of genres out there in the gaming industry, and since there is such a large variety, finding a good balance between all of them is nigh impossible. I spend a good amount of time with RPGs, ranging from action RPG to tactical. This doesn't leave me a lot of room for genres outside of that. And that's not exactly fair because I do genuinely enjoy every genre out there that isn't sports or FPS games. If there is one genre that absolutely doesn't get enough of my attention, it's the 2D beat-em-ups. To be fair, it's a genre that saw most of its popularity through arcade machines rather than stay-home consoles. But that isn't really much of an excuse nowadays with how accessible gaming has become. I remember sitting down at home, watching a Nintendo Indie Showcase, or maybe it was a Nintendo Direct, I'm not sure. Either way, it was about a year ago, and one game in particular stole my attention out of everything there. That game was River City Girls 2. From the first time I laid my eyes on it, I fell in love with the visual style of the game. Not to mention it looked really fun as well. And of course it was also being made by WayForward, who has made quite a few games I loved before. To get myself ready, I decided to pick up the first game on Switch, and decided to play it with a buddy. This will mainly be a video on these two games, River City Girls 1 and 2. I first played these two games with my best friend, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be talking about the one-player experience. Not everyone can play these games with a buddy, but I think that you will have a great experience either way. Also, I will be speaking as a person who has never played a single other game from the Kunio-kun series, or anything that could be connected to these games like Double Dragon or any other River City game. This is my first experience with these games, so if I gloss over the importance of a character or don't get references, please go easy on me. Without further ado, let's get right into the game that got me into this series. The story of River City Girls 1 starts out rather simplistically. Our main heroines, Kyoko and Misako, are currently serving detention. Well, Misako is serving it. Kyoko doesn't even go to this school and is just hanging around for some reason. That's when the girls get a threatening message that their boyfriends, Kunio and Riki, have been kidnapped. From there, the girls bust out of detention and scour all over River City to get their boyfriends back. The plot is very simple, and the girls are pretty much just going from one lead to another until they eventually find them. This isn't to the detriment of the game, however, as the game never sets out to be deep in the first place. Instead, the game focuses more so on the humor and nice character moments. Mostly the humor though. Starting with the nice character moments, our main characters are Misako and Kyoko. As they are the characters we follow throughout most of the game, we get a lot of dialogue between the two. Since the game can focus mainly on these two, it leads to a lot of cute moments with the duo. You really get the sense that these two have been friends for a long time. Especially since at some point we get to see a flashback of the two first meeting, with Misako sticking up for Kyoko when they were very young. It's wholesome. That isn't to say that the attention is solely on the duo, as there are also a few moments with the many side characters you meet along the way. A lot of it is pretty minor, but cute to see. A big example being the fifth boss of the game, Noise. It turns out that Noise and Kyoko actually used to be friends. Kyoko was actually the first friend that she made in the new school she went to. However, some complications arose and they had a bit of a falling out. The bad memories start the fight between the two, and by the end they reconcile. It's not in the deepest or greatest way possible, but it's nice to see, and also cements Noise as one of my more well-liked characters in the series. I sure do hope that she comes back in a future game in a meaningful way and contributes a bit to the story rather than become a little Easter egg when there's plenty to do with their dynamic after the events of this game. But I'm sure I won't have to worry about that one bit. Now onto the humor. The game is very funny. Yep. Okay, I'm not very good at explaining humor or what makes me laugh, so this will be a little difficult for me. The game is very tongue-in-cheek, I guess is the phrase. It has a lot of dry, witty humor that just tickles my funny bone. An example would be what I just got done talking about, the whole situation with Kyoko and Noise. I mentioned that they had a bit of a falling out, but what exactly did that entail? Well, Kyoko apparently left Noise a month later after they become fast friends. Why was this the case? Well, Kyoko simply explains right afterwards that she got expelled for stealing basketball hoops. It's so out of nowhere, and there's a lot of humor like that throughout the game. Even if there are parts of the game that can drag a little bit, I can count on the humor to keep a smile on my face all the way through. Now that we got the basic story out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay. River City Girls 1 plays like a 2D beat-em-up in a 3D environment, meaning that you have full Z-axis control with the environments and characters being 2D. Attacks also only connect while on the same Y-axis, and I would like to get a gripe out of the way while I'm saying this. It can be pretty hard to hit opponents at times, or continue a combo. Enemies move around a lot, and there isn't any sort of collision tied to them that isn't hit or hurt boxes, meaning that you can very easily be inside of a character and just completely whiff attacks. Or your character could move while in a combo and just barely get out of range. Thankfully, I don't have too much else bad to say about the combat in this game. You take control as either Kyoko or Misako, with Kyoko being the more acrobatic and combo-oriented fighter, and Misako being more of a heavy hitter. Both girls are fun to play as, with the game giving you plenty of options for strings and combos. You get a large variety of moves from purchasing them from dojos, such as extending your normal ground combo, to different heavy attacks that can continue a good combo, to a wide variety of special moves to really lay down the hurt. The game doesn't overstay its welcome either. For the most part, you are just going from one area to another in a linear fashion, so the game feels very tight in its length. There are a few times where you have to backtrack, and those can be a little annoying, but they aren't too prevalent and it's usually a short distance when you do. I do have a few issues with the game though. One is the weapons. You can pick up random weapons off the ground, ranging from baseball bats to garbage cans to lightsabers. It's pretty cool, until you realize that you only have two options with them. You have a singular normal attack and an option to throw it. That's it. There isn't much nuance that comes from weapons in this game besides mashing the attack button. Also, there's this little bug to where your invincibility frames randomly go away after picking one up, which can make things very frustrating when all you want to do is retaliate. Another issue I have is with the equipment system. Throughout the game, you obtain and buy equipment that can help you in battle. Keyword is can. 99% of the time, the items you get are incredibly niche and not worthwhile. You get stuff like gaining a minimal 5% extra damage to a specific enemy type, or a 10% chance to get 2 items from a vending machine, which are pretty few and far between, so there's a good chance you won't ever see that effect pop up even if you had it equipped for the entire game. I could count the amount of equipment that help out in a meaningful way on one hand, and that's very sad with how many they throw at you. Thankfully, that's all the bad I have to say about the game, because now we're getting onto the presentation. The game looks absolutely gorgeous. I may not have been around for the old generation of video games, but I still absolutely adore the retro style that indie games usually adapt. There's just something so timeless about pixel art that makes these games always look great. I can't really say much else besides that these games look very good. Music, on the other hand, is great as well. Half of the music pays tribute to old school music, stuff that you would hear from the old days of beat-em-ups, and the other half is vocal music. The soundtrack was done by Megan McDuffie, and my goodness, it sounds so great. The music is very catchy, and it fits very well with the urban setting. Now that I'm done gushing about this game, let's get on to the ending of River City Girls 1. The final area that you visit is the Yakuza Towers, and at the top you fight Sabuko, the daughter of the head of Yakuza, Sabu. We beat her up because of course a couple of high school students could just beat up the current Yakuza leader, and then they kick her out the window. After their graceful dive out the window, they land in a hot springs building and, surprise surprise, Kunio and Riki are right there. However, it seems like they don't recognize the two much at all, and instead talk about how they should visit Hasebe and Mami, two girls we see throughout the game. Kyoko and Misako punch them into space, and that's the end. Weird ending and all, right? Well, that's just the normal ending. After getting this ending, you get the Hasebe charm. And throughout the game, there were these breakable statues of an old school character. Destroy all 25, and you get the Mami charm. Equip these two charms and go back to the room where you fought Sabuko, and then you get a secret fight against Mami and Hasbe. After you beat them up, you kick them through the window, and the ending starts playing out like it did before. But I guess somehow beating those two up rewrote time, and now the two men are actually the girls' boyfriends? Okay. But hey, at least it's a happy ending for them. So that was River City Girls 1. A good game all around and doesn't overstay its welcome at all. But that was just the appetizer. Now it's time to head to the main course. River City Girls 2 starts right where the first game left off, with Kyoko and Misako going on a date with their boyfriends. Defeated and shamed, Sabuko is picked up by her stepbrother Ken, and they are brought to their boss and father, Sabu. After hearing of Sabuko's defeat, he busts out of prison to take control of River City. The girls and the boys head back to school late, and then run into Ken. The Yakuza have apparently already taken over the school for most of the city. In a bit of irony, the main characters get kicked out of the school window and just decide to go home and play video games. For 2 months. On a trip to get a new video game, they run into Ken and just sort of decide to save River City at this point. On their way, they rescue 2 people that join their ranks. Pruvi, a dancer that is fighting the Yakuza to find her friend Chris, who is actually just standing around waiting to be hired. Okay. And Marion, an ex-damsel in distress that got tired of getting kidnapped and decided to become an ultra badass, who has, and I quote from the game, legendary abs. From there, we just go through the progression of the last game, going area to area and fighting the bosses in each place. Instead of trying to save the girls' boyfriends, we're just liberating areas from the Yakuza. The story was simple in the first game, so this shouldn't be a big issue for the second. So long as it kept the 2 things that held it together, that being the character moments and humor. And I'm sad to say that both of them have suffered a bit. And it's mainly got to do with one addition, and that's how scenes work. Something I didn't mention in the last game is that you could unlock Kunio and Riki for play after beating the game once. However, even if you went through the game with the 2, the dialogue will still play out as if it's Kyoko and Misako going through the game. I didn't mind this all that much because the story focused on those 2, and making a whole different story wouldn't have made much sense for something extra like that. However, in River City Girls 2, now all 6 characters have an active speaking role depending on who's player 1 or 2. Or if you're playing alone, you can choose who your partner is. This sounds amazing! Except for the fact that dialogue stays pretty unchanged no matter what the combination. They all have the same lines, same jokes, everything. On very rare occasions, a specific member will speak up, but it's few and far between. So not only does this mean that specific character moments are left with little meaning, but also humor has been more generalized through interactions as well. Sometimes combinations work out well, but then other times I feel like characterization has just been flipped around or is just inconsistent. Also, there are points where characters talk about things that didn't happen to them, like Pruvi talking about events from the last game. The game still has humor, but it's just diminished a bit. Also love how they relegated Noise to a recruit who has like 3 lines, none of them mentioning or having her talk to Kyoko. It's fine, game, I didn't want to see more of this wholesome friendship anyways. Story is out of the way, how is the gameplay? I'm a little mixed honestly, so let's start with the positives. The characters feel a lot better to play. I only mentioned Kyoko and Misako in the last game, even though Riki and Kunio were playable in the last game as well. It's sort of because they weren't really all that fun in the first game. They felt very sluggish and combos didn't feel natural to pull off at all. Thankfully, they got a bit of an overhaul in 2, and they feel much better. And while I haven't tried Marion at all, I played a good amount of the game as Pruvi, and had an absolutely wonderful time. I love the style she has so much, and the fact that she's able to combo off of so many special attacks is just a beauty to see. There are also a few new universal moves for characters, like a charged heavy attack that makes enemies dizzy quicker, as well as a move to lift yourself and enemies off the ground to start an aerial combo. Combat has seen improvement, and that's not the only thing they have improved. Equipment actually matters this time around. Plenty of equipment from the last game has been changed up to give effects that actually matter, such as gaining elemental properties for heavy attacks, boosting damage for specific attacks rather than specific enemies, as well as utility equipment gaining more stamina from attacking or getting attacked. It's so much better in this game, and I'm very thankful for that. However, we do have to get back to problems, and my biggest one with this game is structure. In the last game, I praised the game for being rather tight with its content and progression. However, in River City Girls 2, there is a lot more to do. And by a lot more, I do mean a lot more. We got a lot more side quests around town, and they are honestly pretty tedious. Some are fine, like the ones that immediately have you go into a minigame, but then there are others that require a lot of back and forth between areas you've already been to, and by the end of the game they start to drag. But hey, that's fine, because side quests are ultimately optional. You don't have to complete them. Sadly though, that issue is not just with the side quests. Many of the quests you have to do in the main game have you going back and forth over and over. River City Girls 1 had these moments in the game, but none being this arduous to complete. Here's one of the biggest offenders. You go uptown and go through the entire area. You're stopped by Green Bobo who says he can't let you go through. So you travel all the way back through the area to near the beginning where you see Hiroshi. We need to get into the arcade to prove ourselves to Green Bobo, but can't because the Yakuza are occupying it. Now we go through the area again to collect coins for the arcade. Then we go all the way back through to get to the arcade. We do a minigame, and then we go all the way back through to get to Green Bobo, and then finally we can go inside. All of that back and forth with no way to fast travel between the two areas just drains you. And it's not the only time the game does this. Not to mention that a lot of areas in the game are recycled. Not everything, mind you, as there are still plenty of new places to go in the game, and the old areas have new things to them, but it still feels a little samey. Now then, let's get to the end of this game. We find ourselves in the Yakuza Towers once more, and this time we are fighting Sabu. We beat him, send him through the roof, then the group goes back to play video games with a short cameo with Hasebe and Mami. And... oh, wait, that's it? Strange, we don't get any additional characters like we did last time. Even though we just saw Hasebe and Mami and they would fit right at home in this game. Okay, but this is only the normal ending, of course. It has to be. So I went back, did all the side quests, and didn't notice anything out of the ordinary after that. No completion flag, no unlocked characters, no items with vague descriptions to go after. And then I looked it up and lo and behold, there was nothing. This was the ending? That's it? No additional characters to unlock and have fun with? No extra ending? Nothing? I'm not being greedy, right? We got this stuff in the last game, so I was expecting it to happen here, but we got nothing. I still ultimately enjoyed myself with the game, but I can't help but feel like it was a bit of a step down from the first. The first game was such a tight experience that was fun all the way, while this one felt a little more bloated with content I didn't fully enjoy. After I had done everything, I just felt a little empty. Like there was supposed to be something else. It felt so anticlimactic with the story ending in such a weak way. Just like this video.